You're tired. But not the kind of tired sleep can fix. You've rested. You've done less. You've tried being kind to yourself, and yet, something still feels off, like your insides are weighed down by something unnamed. And the scariest part? Nothing looks broken. You smile when you're supposed to. You laugh at the right times. You say, "I'm fine." And part of you almost believes it. But underneath, you feel hollow. Like your life kept moving forward, and somehow, you got left behind. You don't remember the moment you stopped feeling like yourself, but now, every day feels like pretending, like wearing a version of you that no longer fits. And no, this isn't laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's not a mindset problem. It's something deeper. Something Carl Jung saw long before this modern world taught us to ignore our souls. The soul gets tired, he warned, when it's forced to live a life that makes no room for it. And that's the kind of tired no one sees coming. Because on the outside, you're functioning, you're smiling, you're getting things done. But inside, you're fading. Not all at once, just quietly, incrementally. Like dust collecting on something sacred you stopped touching. You're not tired from running. You're tired from hiding. From saying yes when everything in you tightens. From holding space for others while your own heart starves for attention. From carrying conversations when what you really need is to hear your own voice again. And the world keeps praising you, calling you strong, stable, selfless. But your soul knows better, and your body, it's been grieving. Not loudly, but in tension you can't stretch away, in emptiness you can't explain, in a quiet whisper that returns when the noise dies down. I miss who I was before I started pleasing everyone. There are parts of you've been hiding for years, not because you wanted to, but because somewhere along the way, you learned they weren't safe to show. The anger, the softness, the voice that said, "I need more." So you buried them, swallowed the words, smiled through the ache. And life went on. People praised your strength. They called you mature, selfless, easy to be around. But deep down, something in you started to go quiet. Not dead, just dim. And that's the kind of tired no sleep can fix, because it's not about rest, it's about misalignment. You're tired because you've been saying yes when everything in you whispered no. Tired because you've been editing yourself just to be accepted. Tired because the version of you that gets love doesn't feel like you anymore. And here's the truth no one tells you. Burnout doesn't show up all at once. It builds in small betrayals, moments where you abandon yourself just to keep the peace, moments where you dim your light just to make others comfortable, Until one day, you realize you can't laugh the same, can't cry the same, can't even feel the same. You're still functioning, but the life inside you is flickering. And when you finally break, the world tells you, get some rest, take a weekend off, buy something, feel better. But deep down, you know, it's not rest you need. It's a return, a coming home to the parts of you you taught yourself to live without. You've mistaken this tiredness for being overworked. But what if it's something else? Not a cry for sleep, but a quiet scream for meaning. Because there's a difference between needing rest and needing to return. You've been scanning the world for answers, changing habits, fixing schedules, drinking more water, trying to outrun something you can only face by slowing down. But Jung would say, you won't find the truth by looking outward. You'll only find reflections and dreams and distractions that keep you comfortable in the life that's killing you softly. The clarity, it comes only when you dare to sit with what's left when the noise fades. And all that's left is you. That feeling you can't name, the one that lingers even after 10 hours of sleep, even after the to-do list is cleared, even after the smile you forced just to make it through another day. That isn't weakness. It's the part of you that went quiet when you started living someone else's life. The routines that drain you, the conversations that empty you, the masks you've worn so long you forgot your own face underneath. That's not fatigue. That's exile. And your body, it remembers. It sends signals, not always as sadness, but as distance, disconnection.
A quiet ache in the center of your chest that says, "You left me behind." And here's the truth no one says out loud. This isn't burnout. This is your soul asking you to come home. You don't need another coffee. You don't need another escape. You need permission to feel what you've buried, to speak what you silenced, to sit in the mirror and whisper, "I'm not okay, but I'm still here, and I want to find my way back." If you're still here, still listening, not scrolling, not numbing, but feeling, then something in you is ready, ready to stop surviving, ready to come home to the self you left behind just to be loved. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just overdue for your own truth. So if this spoke to something you don't usually say out loud, like the video. And if you want to walk this path with others who feel it too, subscribe. Because here, we don't look away. We remember. We return. Together. There's a version of you that shows up for the world. Polished, agreeable, composed. It says the right things. It nods. It adapts. But the longer you wear it, the harder it becomes to tell where the mask ends and you begin. And that's when it starts. Not with a bang, but with silence. A slow unraveling. Jung called it the persona, the self we create to be acceptable. But when that self becomes permanent, when it's no longer a choice but a performance you can't turn off,
Something inside you begins to go numb. You try to shake it off. You take breaks. You eat better. You rest. But rest doesn't reach you because the tiredness you carry isn't in your muscles. It's in your identity. You've spent so long becoming who they wanted that when you're finally alone, you panic. You reach for your phone. You fill the room with noise because silence feels like a stranger asking, "Who are you, really?" And you don't know anymore. Ignore that question long enough, and your shadow stops whispering. It shouts. Through panic you can't explain, anger you didn't see coming, waves of sadness that rise out of nowhere. You call it burnout, but really, it's your soul demanding to be seen. This isn't weakness. This is the cost of being everything except yourself. And it builds, not through tragedy, but through repetition. Until one day, you hit the floor, not from a single collapse, but from the weight of 1,000 quiet compromises. It wasn't one big thing. It was the last small thing, the one your body could no longer swallow. Jung didn't just speak in theories. He spoke in thresholds. He believed the soul keeps score in silence. And when you abandon who you really are for too long, the punishment isn't loud, it's emptiness. You don't fall apart all at once. You just slowly forget how it feels to be alive. You still smile, you still show up, you still get things done. But behind your eyes, there's distance. Not sadness, absence. And Jung would tell you to ask the one question no one dares to ask. When did I begin to perform instead of exist? Was it the first time they told you, "Don't cry, be strong"? Was it when you realized that being quiet made people love you more than being honest? Was it the day you shrunk your emotions just to keep the room calm? Somewhere in that quiet moment, you made a sacred trade, not out of weakness, but out of survival. You chose love over truth, safety over wholeness, peace over permission. And now your body grieves what your mind refuses to name.
Not because you're broken, but because you buried something holy to fit in. That grief, it isn't depression. It isn't fatigue. It's the mourning of your unspoken life. The boundaries you never claimed. The voice you never used. The dreams you deferred so long, they began to rot in the basement of your spirit. And here's the beautiful, brutal part. It's rising now because you're finally safe enough to feel it. This is the rupture before the return. The ache before the rebirth. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to carry the weight of a self you never chose. The roles you played, they kept you alive. But now, they're starving you. And Jung knew, healing doesn't start with fixing. It starts with meeting. Meeting the you beneath the roles. The version you've buried under responsibility, perfection, control. The raw one, the real one. The one who is not lazy, just exhausted from being someone else for too long. You're not unmotivated. You're not failing. You're just longing for a life that makes you feel real again. And that is not weakness. That is your soul trying to come home.
Carl Jung once said that people would rather climb a mountain of distraction than sit still and face their own soul. But you've been facing it daily. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet war of simply getting out of bed when everything in you feels miles underwater. That's not laziness. That's endurance without applause. That's survival in a world that rewards the mask, but never sees the cost of wearing it. See, when you drift too far from your real self, your body doesn't rebel in anger. It begins to shut down. Not because you're failing, but because you're running on a script that doesn't belong to you anymore. This tiredness you feel, it's not from overdoing. It's from overriding. Overriding your needs, your intuition, your no's, your limits, your truth. And when your mind says, just push through, but your soul is whispering, I can't do this anymore. That's not weakness. That's friction. And it burns through your life force faster than any physical task ever could. Jung believed the deepest suffering wasn't caused by trauma or failure, but the slow, silent divorce from who you really are. And that separation, it doesn't scream. It wears you down. It numbs your joy. It steals your appetite for life until even the things that used to move you just pass by. But here's the part no one says out loud. This exhaustion isn't the enemy.
It's the signal. The body's final attempt to be heard after everything else was ignored. Because you can fake composure. You can fake happiness. But you can't fake energy. You either feel alive or you don't. So when the motivation fades, when the spark's gone, when even simple things feel heavy, maybe that's not a breakdown. Maybe that's a return. A slow unraveling of what was never really you. A sacred collapse. Not into failure, but into truth. Maybe you're not lazy. Maybe you're just done performing. Done pretending that meetings, calendars, smiles, and small talk are enough to build a life. Because they're not. They never were. And here's the miracle Jung pointed to. The moment you stop running from yourself, the war ends. Not because you fixed anything, but because you finally chose to stop leaving yourself behind. And when the war ends, the energy doesn't just come back. You do. You don't feel happy. Not yet. But you feel real. And real is better than happy. Real is rooted. It doesn't need the sun to feel alive. It doesn't ask for applause. It simply exists, unapologetically, unedited, awake. That's the quiet miracle no one talks about. When you finally realize the tiredness was never about the weight you carried, but how far you drifted from the part of you built to carry it. And now you stop reaching for normal. Because that old version of you, the one who smiled through the sting, who made herself small to be chosen, who abandoned truth just to keep the peace, that version didn't survive the collapse. She shouldn't have to. So you don't rebuild her. You start over, softly, deliberately, from the inside out. You begin by saying no without explaining yourself,
by giving your body rest without guilt, by letting joy enter the room without needing it to be earned. And little by little, something ancient in you starts to rise, not with fireworks, but with stillness. A quiet voice that says, "This is me. This is who I was before I learned to perform fatigue instead of feel freedom." Carl Jung once said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart." And sometimes it takes a kind of tiredness that no nap can touch to bring you there. The kind of tiredness that presses pause on your momentum so you can feel again. So you can ask, not from your mind, but from your chest, what if I'm not broken? What if I've just been gone? And in that moment, something shifts. Not loud, not dramatic, just honest. And that honesty tastes like coming home, not to a place, to a way of being, one where you no longer have to earn rest or prove your right to exist. This kind of tiredness, the soul-deep kind, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means your spirit is starving for something real. Not productivity, not performance, just peace. Not the kind that comes from escaping life, but the kind that comes from finally choosing to live it as yourself. You've smiled through dinners where your heart wasn't present. You've achieved things that looked good on paper, but meant nothing when the lights went off. You've been surrounded, but never felt seen. Praised, but never felt known. And piece by piece, you learned to survive in a world that only loved your performance. But now, you're here. Not broken, not behind, not failing, just done. Done carrying what was never yours. Done pretending that exhaustion is ambition. Done betraying the voice inside that's been whispering, "There's more than this." You're not here to rebuild a shinier version of yourself. You're here to recover what was sacred before you were taught to hide it. And that self, she doesn't chase applause. She doesn't beg to be understood. She doesn't wear her productivity like armor. She rests. She listens. She breathes. Because rest isn't laziness. It's language. The first language your soul spoke before it learned how to perform. And this tiredness? It isn't weakness. It's the body finally saying, "I can't lie for you anymore." You've said yes too often when you were bleeding inside. You've stayed quiet when your heart needed to scream. You've kept showing up in places that didn't deserve your presence. Now, it's time to stop. Not forever, just long enough to come home. Because healing doesn't always look like doing. Sometimes it looks like allowing. Allowing yourself to cancel the call. Let the friendship fade. Say, "I don't have it in me," and not explain why. Jung never taught us to fix ourselves. He taught us to meet ourselves. The forgotten self. The one beneath the titles, the timelines, the tired eyes. The one who's been whispering all along, "Please come back. I'm still here." This is not your moment to push. This is your permission to pause. Not to quit, but to return. Return to the breath you've been holding. Return to the truth you buried beneath what they expected of you. Because that truth, that's where your energy lives. That's where you live. You are not a checklist, not a role, not a brand. You are a soul. And your soul isn't tired because it's fragile. It's tired because it's been silenced. And now, it's ready to speak. If this found you when you needed it, like the video, so someone else who's been quietly unraveling can feel less alone. If you're done pretending and ready to be real, subscribe. Because here, we don't just talk about healing. We live it, one truth at a time. And if you've made it this far, drop this in the comments below. I'm not lazy. I'm remembering. Let someone else see it. Let them breathe. Let them know that even in stillness, they're not alone. Because the moment you choose truth over performance, you begin to live again.